Hey guys, so welcome back. I'm gonna just jump right in because I've got a lot to talk about. I'm gonna put a timestamp somewhere right here when the actual topic of this video starts, because I've got a little bit of a life update and a few disclaimers right at the beginning. So first of all, apologies. I've been gone. I haven't filmed in a little while. I've been on a little bit of a bender. I'm not doing the best. I've been gaining more weight, binge eating more. Moods have been very up and down. It's been a very confusing time. So that's why I have not contributed anything to this channel. Disclaimer number 2, or update, whatever. Note number 2. This is my second time filming this video because I already filmed it once, and I did not like the way that I looked. I didn't like my double chin. I didn't like the lighting. I didn't like the sound quality was also really bad because I left a bunch of fans running. So this is my second time filming this video. Hopefully it's better. But I'm in a different spot. So there are animals everywhere. I've turned the fans off so that hopefully there's less noise. But I have right here is my 13-year-old black lab, Izzy. And she's a very good girl, but she breathes very loud and licks a little bit. So if you hear breathing, it's Izzy. And she apologizes, but she just really needs to be sitting here right now, and she really needs to breathe. So that's that. Another thing, my appearance. Look, I have very hooded eyes. Eyeliner goes from 0 to 100 by accident. Like nothing. So it just, this is what happened today. Like I said, I haven't been doing the best, but I tried to feel like a human being, and this is the outcome. And so we're just gonna move right along. I very recently, I'm going fast because I filmed this yesterday with less information, and it was like 40 minutes of footage, so I'm trying to get through it. But I was very recently, like since filming my last video, diagnosed with inattentive ADHD, which I was kind of like skeptical about, because I feel like everybody has ADHD now. But doing a little bit of research about how ADHD is linked with binge eating, I have hope. So I just went and registered today at a new doctor's office so that I can get in and see about treating that. So if you're interested in that at all, again, this video and that content would not be directly avoidant personality disorder related, but we all are just collecting diagnoses over here anyways, right? So so we can talk about other stuff too. But I think that's all of the updates and like life disclaimers. Now I have like a pretty serious video disclaimer for what you're about to watch. And that is that today we're talking about like narcissistic abuse, a relationship that I was in where I experienced that kind of abuse, and how during that period of my life, if I had been evaluated, I feel like I would have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So what I want to do in this video is kind of go over the different like types of like a few examples of the types of abuse that I experienced in that relationship, and then talk about the different like symptoms of borderline personality disorder that I experienced during that time, and whether or not they have since resolved since leaving that relationship. So inherently, while talking about this concept of narcissistic abuse, I'm going to be recalling my personal traumas, basically, and I just want to put it out there that I'm not entirely like comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable, but I'm not like excited about the idea of sharing these kinds of details publicly online. And I don't want it to be perceived as something that I am doing for views or anything like that. Like, this is a very small channel, and I feel like it's reaching specifically the people that I want it to reach, and I'm hoping that those are the people that see this video. So that's not why I'm sharing these things. I just feel like I am at a point in my life where I am comfortable talking about this stuff for the sake of opening up the discussion about how these things affect pathology later in life. That's what I like to talk about, that's what I'm interested in, and that's what I hope to do with this video. So if you are triggered by hearing about grooming or illegal sexual relationships with minors, or like emotional and mental abuse, then don't watch this video. But I feel okay sharing that because I feel like this video is going to reach the people who need to see it. So with all of that out of the way, let's talk about it. So I was 15 years old when I first met the person that I would end up getting into this relationship with. We're gonna call him John. I was 15 and I was working as a waitress. I'm gonna make this very brief, like the background. It was my first job, and I was co-workers with John's current girlfriend at the time. So I didn't know him yet. I knew his girlfriend because I worked with her. And he came into the restaurant one day to see her, and I guess allegedly ended up making a comment to her about how he thought I was cute. They did not have a good relationship either. It was toxic as well, so I don't know. But she told me that he said that he thought I was cute and that she like teased him about it because I was so young. She was only a year or two older than me. So I was 15, she was 16 or 17, and he was 22 at the time. Eventually they broke up, and when I was 16 years old and he was 23 years old, we somehow started communicating on Facebook, I think, on social media somewhere. So keep in mind, I've taken some notes, but this whole period of my life, like 3 to 4 years that I was with this person, the memories are spotty at best. I really have a hard time remembering things, and so this might be a little bit all over the place, but we started really communicating when I was 16 and he was 23 years old. And eventually, after flirting on social media, we decided we wanted to start hanging out and start dating. Which I was over the moon about. I was so infatuated with him. None of this felt like coerced or anything to me at this point. I was super excited about it. I was super into him. I thought he was so cool. And so I didn't have my license at the time, so he would pick me up from like local businesses that were nearby my high school, because I would walk to them after high school. I would tell my mom I was hanging out with somebody else, and I would walk from high school to one of these local businesses, and he would pick me up, and we would go to his house, usually, and hang out. And so that was how the relationship started. I was obsessed with him. Our first physical relationship started, I believe, if I remember right, the night of my junior prom was the first night that I stayed over at his house and slept with him. We were very drunk. He started, again, this was like something that I wanted to do, or at least was manipulated into believing that I wanted to do, because remember, I was 16. But as soon as I started sleeping over at his house, I started drinking with him a lot as well. So those are like the early red flags that I didn't pick up on back then, because I thought I was super mature for my age and I thought it was all cool, was that he was dating a 16-year-old, providing alcohol to a 16-year-old, and obviously having sex with a 16-year-old at 23 years old. So that was sort of how the relationship started. We started having issues pretty much immediately with him lying and cheating. So basically, because I was a minor, that was the excuse that he used for wanting to keep our relationship secret. We were not even friends on Facebook for over 2 years, because really, after I turned 18, it was even like, it took a while for me to convince him to like go public with me. Wonder why. But I started getting insecure pretty quickly, because I started hearing rumors and, just questioning his loyalty to me. Again, can't even fathom this at 16 years old. But, for example, Jen told me that he had slept with her after, like, our relationship was a secret at this point, but I was telling my friends and like certain people, and so Jen was like, oh, you guys are dating? Like, well, him and I had sex whenever. And so there were a few instances where like a handful of instances over the course of the 4 or so years that we dated, that I caught him cheating on me. And yesterday I went into more detail about these instances, but I don't think that that's important to what we're talking about. I think it just was cathartic to tell my story the first time. But basically, the issue with the lying and the cheating was the gaslighting surrounding it, and the way that he would make me feel absolutely insane for calling him out on something that was like pretty blatant infidelity. There was a time that I found like pretty clearly intimate text messages between him and one of his friends, supposed friends, that he told me like he would never cheat on me with her because she had genital warts, and like I was insane for thinking that I would have to worry about her because he would never sleep with her and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh, and it really made me question, like, did I even read? It made me question what I saw with my own eyes, which is like advanced narcissist behavior and textbook narcissistic abuse. Other examples of gaslighting were when Jen told me that he had slept with her a few weeks after him and I had started dating. He told me that she was lying and that he only went over there to sell her his Xbox, that he was there, but he just sold her his Xbox and nothing else happened, and she was lying. And I totally thought she was like the worst person in the world, and I thought for sure she would lie about that. So I was like, oh, okay. But it actually went even further than that, from just defending himself to the point where he started becoming offensive in his forms of like gaslighting for cheating. Like, he would accuse me of cheating a lot, but not just accuse me of cheating. Oh yeah, I have two examples that are like crazy. It's like funny, but it's not funny, but like in retrospect it's kind of funny because they're so outrageous. So one time he accused me of cheating because I changed my profile picture on Facebook to that like hoax picture of Bigfoot, you know, the blurry one of him like walking, his profile of him like walking through the woods. I changed my profile picture to the hoax photo of Bigfoot, literally because I thought it was funny, and I have a meme sense of humor. Like, that's just what it is. I just thought it was funny and random, and he was like, "That's so fucking weird. You're obviously hiding something. Like, you're trying to pretend you're somebody else or trying not to be found. Like, you're clearly going behind my back about something and cheating on me with somebody who you're not friends with on Facebook." So that was crazy. And then also one time, and this is one that like, this is a perfect example of narcissistic abuse, of like a singular example of a real thing that happened to me, that was abuse at the hands of a narcissist that has like affected me for the rest of my life since then. Like, this is over 10 years ago. One time we were having sex and he stopped in the middle and said, "I know you're cheating on me because it feels different." Like, what the fuck am I supposed to say to that? How am I supposed to defend myself? And this was not just like a joke. Like, this was a blowout fight of like, first me being angry that he would accuse me of that, and then me begging him to believe me that I was telling the truth. So it's just crazy. So gaslighting, that's a cornerstone, flagship, cornerstone. That's like a classic narcissist tactic, is the gaslighting. Everybody knows about that now. And so those are some of like the more extreme examples of what I dealt with as far as that goes. He would also really like sort of gaslight me and be very critical of the way that I dressed and the things that I wore. Keep in mind, again, 16, 17, 18 years old, like experimenting with my style. When I first started dating him, my style changed so drastically. I became super fixated on dressing like more sexy because I thought that that's what he wanted, and I thought that's what I had to do to keep him interested. And he would always make comments, like little microaggressions almost, about things that I was wearing. A couple of examples. This was back in 2000 and like 10, 2012, like in there somewhere. And so it was popular for there to be like shirts, like t-shirts, that had elastic like right under the boobs, basically to like define the shape. Like, that was a popular shape of shirt back then, and I really liked it because I have body issues and I felt like it was covering stuff. Anyway, he told me every time I wore a shirt like that I looked pregnant and that it looked like a maternity shirt and I shouldn't wear it, which like they do kind of look like maternity shirts, but he told me that I looked pregnant and shouldn't wear those. So I never did again. And then also one time I was wearing a ring. I was wearing a ring that I had gotten with my family in Arizona at a flea market. It was a really special memory and a really pretty ring with a little purple, like opal-y looking stone in it. And he told me that it looked like a little kid's like Barbie ring, and that it was embarrassing and that I should take it off because it made me look too young, which I was too young. So things like that, like I was really, really obsessed with I felt like I was walking on eggshells trying to figure out, like, is this an outfit that he's going to like? Is this something that he's gonna make fun of? And my style completely changed. It went from being really experimental and fun to just being like black and like sexy as possible, which is crazy to me because that's just not who I am now. So yeah, and then let's see if I have any other examples. So the grooming, the alcohol, the gaslighting for cheating and lying, and the criticizing. The secret. He also never said he loved me until we broke up, the last time that I broke up with him for real. He never said he loved me over 3 years. And he never met my parents, which I don't really want to bring my parents into this too much. I just want to say at this point I was lying to my parents a lot. They really didn't know the extent of what I was doing because I felt like I was in control of the situation. It was a relationship that I wanted and was dead set on pursuing, kind of no matter what they said. They were aware of him, but they were not aware of like how often I was spending time there or like me sleeping over. Like I would always lie about that. And they did disapprove of him. They just sort of knew that there wasn't that much that they could do. And so there's room for criticism there, but I don't want to do that. Especially not in this video. So those were just things that, like, at the time he was my boyfriend and I was in love with him and I wanted him to meet my family and he never would because he knew what he was doing was messed up. And so that's like the overview. I mean, it was 3 years of like the most tumultuous relationship like you can imagine. Incredibly volatile. I was so desperate for his validation. I wanted him to love me back so bad, and he would just kind of like use me as he could get away with. So now I'm gonna go over the BPD symptom criteria and sort of talk about, now that you know the background of that relationship, talk about those symptoms, my experience with those symptoms during that relationship, and whether or not I feel like they have since resolved. So the first one is distressed efforts to avoid abandonment. Again, I was obsessed with him and I could not handle the rejection. I couldn't accept it. I wouldn't allow it, which I think is why the relationship went on as long as it did, because we broke up all the time, but we would always get back together. I was always begging him to get back together. One actual like tangible example of that, because again, I don't remember much of this. I wish that I could recall more. But there's one time I do remember where I had my own license at the time, but he was still living in like one of the older houses that he lived in, so I know I was 17 at the time. That after we had broken up, I went over to his house uninvited, unannounced. I just like left and went over to his house. He didn't expect me to do that, so he didn't tell his roommate not to let me in, so he did. And I literally went into his room while he was like basically sleeping, crawled into bed with him and like begged him to sleep with me, begged him to take me back, like sobbing. And it's so crazy, like, guys, when I tell you I'm so far removed from this situation, like that doesn't feel like a real thing that happened to me anymore. Like, it doesn't feel like a real thing that I did. Like, that was 10 years ago for me now. And I just feel like a completely different human being. I can't believe that I did that. But that's how I was at that point. I was obsessed with not being abandoned. Do I think that has resolved? Yeah, I do. I feel like I have a very normal, I would have a very normal reaction to, like, the dissolution of a relationship. Like, I don't know. I don't do things like that now. Unstable and extreme relationships. Again, that's really the last relationship I had that was like that. The last two relationships that I've had since that one have been very stable, very steady. I don't think in either relationship we've broken up more than, the one time. So that's completely resolved. Identity disturbance. This one's a little tough because, like I said, I've talked about this with my avoidant personality disorder topics. I have kind of always dealt with this. It was present then. It's still kind of present now. However, looking back, that was, I think, the beginning of the identity disturbance. When I sort of completely changed my style to start to be what I thought he wanted, that was where that began. Impulsive behavioral patterns in sex and drinking, specifically for me. I mean, I guess you can also just look at, like, the period of my life that I was in. Like, I was a late teen, early adult. But both of these patterns have completely changed since my relationship with him. Back then, I used sex as, like, a tool, basically. Like, I thought that I needed to use that to keep him interested, to keep his focus on me. And then even when we would break up, I would use it against him. I would use it to make him jealous. And then drinking, I mean, I was in late high school and early college, so I probably would have drank anyway, but him providing me that alcohol early on really was, like, pretty out of character for me at that point when I was 16. And anyway, I don't feel impulsive or irresponsible in either of those respects since that relationship. Suicidal patterns, threats, gestures, etc. I can almost guarantee there were at least a couple times where I threatened to hurt myself in order to try to gain his sympathy. Unfortunately, I don't have any concrete recollections of this. I just feel like that's something that I did. So I don't know, this one's kind of up in the air. I also have been depressed since I was 15, and so suicidal thoughts and ideations have been present, whether or not I was in this relationship, but really using them as a tool would have been definitely specific to that relationship. Affective instability and chronic empty feelings. So chronic empty feelings, that one is, like, I've definitely had that outside of that relationship. Again, I've struggled with depression for a really long time. But the mood swings, also another one is trouble controlling anger. So the really intense mood swings and the trouble controlling anger are things that I definitely have not experienced, at least the anger especially, since that relationship. We used to get into absolute blowout fights, screaming, crying, wailing, like really, really insane. And actually a lot of the time it was me screaming, crying, and wailing, and him acting very calm and being very detached. And I think that's, like, part of really what sort of sets it apart as far as like borderline personality disorder or reactive abuse or reaction to narcissistic abuse. You know what I mean? But I really don't get angry, like, at all since that relationship. I get upset, I get sad, and I obviously do have trouble with like some affective instability as far as like, I still don't know if I'm bipolar or not, but it's really, really not the same as when I was with that person. Like, my moods were completely all over the place, and you know, the gaslighting, it was everything combined, just made it very, very difficult to regulate my emotions. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I just feel like it would be a shame for somebody, especially a young person, like an 18-year-old, to be diagnosed with a lifelong personality disorder like BPD. It's a very difficult, that's a difficult thing to live with. I would hate for that to happen when in reality, maybe you're just needing to remove yourself from a situation with somebody who is very toxic and manipulative, because that really is traumatic. I am lucky that I did not develop borderline personality disorder for the rest of my life because of this person, but there have been, you know, there is trauma there, and there are things that have manifested in different ways that I am still struggling to overcome. So that's that. Is it borderline or is it narcissistic abuse? You know, it's just a good question to keep in mind. So again, I do not have borderline personality disorder. I have avoidant personality disorder, and apparently ADHD. So that's just my experience from 10 years ago. So anyway, if you have any other questions for me about this topic, or if you have any other topics you want me to talk about, the people who have been seeing my videos thus far have been incredible, and I really appreciate your comments and your insight. And somebody suggested I talk about perfectionism, so I'm going to do that soon. But yeah, until next time, you guys, have a good one.